Welcome to Mojo Plays, and today we are taking a look at every Rayman game and ranking them based on difficulty, creativity, and overall experience. Unfortunately, we will not be including his DLC outing in Mario + Rabbids Sparks of Hope because, well, you know, that was DLC. This is every Rayman game ranked.
Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Number 14, Rayman Brain Games.
Fro, as in frog, cry.
Look, there were some genuinely decent edutainment games during the late 90s and early 2000s. The Jumpstart games are a good example of how the genre can work well, but Rayman Brain Games was not one of them.
Mill. Will.
While the presentation and visuals match the style of the original Rayman, the game never truly evolves beyond listening to numbers and words to identify correct paths. There are some basic platforming challenges between the problem solving, but any child is going to get bored of this game. It is already hard enough to incorporate learning with video games and keep it fun. It's worse when the attempt is this half-hearted. Number 13, Rayman Raving Rabbids TV Party. As a video game, TV Party is not an awful game. The minigames can be pretty funny even if their gameplay is more simplistic than most may want. However, this was the point where Ubisoft seemed to be slowly pushing Rayman out the door. The frequency of new games with these maniacal bunnies was quickly getting out of hand, and our boy isn't even on the front cover of the game. This is called Rayman Raving Rabbids TV Party. Where's Rayman? There is a campaign with him as the main character, just as the previous Raving Rabbids games, but overall, TV Party was more a red flag than anything else. Number 12, Rayman 2 Forever. Making a Game Boy Color version of Rayman 2 should have been so simple. Simply turn the 3D platformer into a 2D platformer. While it does do that and it translates the story just fine, the gameplay is severely lacking. We're completely fine with it playing a little bit like the original Rayman game, but it doesn't boast any of the imagination displayed in either games. The environments are bland, there are barely any hazards on screen to put pressure on the player, and the music can be ear-piercing. There's really no need for anyone to play this over the console versions of Rayman 2. There just isn't. Number 11, Rayman Hoodlum's Revenge. If there was one word we could use to describe Hoodlum's Revenge, it would be serviceable. It isn't horrendous by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just not all that special. It's a 3D platformer in the way GBAs could only replicate it compared to its home console brethren. However, what kills it is the camera and the HUD. You can easily miscalculate a jump and wind up taking damage or even dying. It can turn the experience annoying rather quickly, and it's enough for us to want to pop in any other game after more than a few minutes. Number 10, Rayman Rush. We know that this is a demake of Rayman Arena, but it's worth including as a separate entry due to its botched quality. Half of the PS2 iteration is missing to accommodate the PS1's limitations, and the roster goes from 18 to 8 playable characters. And what the hell, we only get racing? If that was your only favorite portion of the original iterations, maybe you were fine with Rush, but there really wasn't much reason to get this title if you already had the other. Number 9, Rayman M, aka Rayman Arena. This is the game that Rush was demade from, and it was far superior in every way. Whether you played the PS2 Rayman M or the GameCube and Xbox version known as Rayman Arena, you got roughly the same experience with minor differences. Choose from a handful of characters from across the franchise, some even being new characters like Dark Glowbox. Why Tilly is here when Lee could have had a spot is beyond us, but regardless, the music, level design, and general arcadey vibe made this a fun title to play with friends. There may not be as much content as other multiplayer party titles like Smash Bros. Or Mario Kart, but for what it was a decent game. Number 8, Rayman Raving Rabbids 2. If we were looking at the Rabbids game specifically, we would put this pretty high up on the list. Alas, this is a list of Rayman games, meaning Rayman takes precedent, which this title forgot to do. While you could play as our hero across a variety of minigames, his presence was shoved aside. Yes, there were shooter segments like in the previous game, but it only earned you new costumes, mostly for the Rabbids. Credit where it's due, it was cool to see how Ubisoft took real footage of various locations around the world and used it to impose enemies as if they were really running around in the environment. And the minigames were just as hilarious as its predecessors. Number 7, Rayman 3 for the Game Boy Advance. Of the handheld Rayman games, this was the better one. We'll be the first to admit that on the surface it almost looks like a bootleg game. Really, the visuals seem off here. But that doesn't detract from the gameplay. It plays a lot like the original Rayman from 1995 on PS1. What makes it exceptional compared to the previous handheld entries is the visual clarity and significantly improved audio. It still isn't as good as the home console games, but when compared to something like Rayman 2 Forever or Hoodlum's Revenge, this is a massive step up. Number 6, Rayman Raving Rabbids. Some fans will quickly trash and dismiss the first Raving Rabbids since this was the start of his fade into obscurity, and the start of the disrespect. But to be honest, it's still fun on its own merits. The minigames, while super simplistic, carry a lot of humor with bizarre ideas, but the real meat of the game is the shooter segment. These segments offer a nice break between sets of minigames to let you enjoy some classic arcade shooter fun. It's like House of the Dead, but for kids, and it's loaded with plungers. It may get stale during extensive playtime, but the die-hard Rayman fanatics ought to give the game its flowers for what it does do right. Number 5, Rayman! The very first Rayman game is going to be hit or miss for some players. From the imaginative worlds to the clever level design, Rayman hides plenty of secrets and challenges for players to discover. You might even get carried away toying with some of the enemies. However, we can admit that some of the mechanics in backtracking to free all of the Electoons might be obtuse for those less experienced. It's easy to tell part of it was designed to combat rental store customers from blasting through the game. Just wait until you get to Bandland. That place sucks, but the rest of the game, mwah, chef's kiss. Number 4, Rayman 3 Hoodlum Havoc. Hoodlum Havoc is a bit of an odd entry compared to the other Rayman games. Half of it feels like it wants to be a sequel to Rayman 2, while the other half feels like it wants to deviate from its predecessor. While you do have your run-of-the-mill 3D platforming, you now have to consider how to grab collectibles and defeat enemies in quick succession to build up your score. Then you have a handful of power-ups that can change how you approach combat and exploration. Mix all this in with full-on voice acting by performers like Billy West and John Leguizamo, and what you have is a game that is an acquired taste. It may not click at first, but stick with it for a little bit and you will find something truly special here, despite how weird it can get. Number 3, Rayman Origins. Origins gave us a little bit of hope for our favorite thingamajig. With the Rabbids splitting off into their own franchise, Origins showed that Rayman could live on with his own identity and without the need for bunny ears and plungers. This was a return to the roots of classic Rayman gameplay, 2D platforming with fantastical environments and making fools out of hunters capturing creatures. With a beautiful art style and equally magnificent score, Origins was outdoing many other platformers at the time in terms of level design, mechanics, and atmosphere. Number 2, Rayman 2 The Great Escape. This game has been ported, remastered, HD'd, and even 3D'd like crazy. Playing any version will show you why this is such a massive favorite among Rayman fans. There's the epic story where Rayman and company work together to bring down Razorbeard and his robot pirates. You visit wondrous landmarks and realms like the Fairy Glades and the Cave of Bad Dreams, and there are plenty of fun gimmicks like flying, berry bouncing, and rocket riding to test your platforming skills. The first game was already pretty great, but Ubisoft truly kicked the door down with this one. Number 1, Rayman Legends. If Ubisoft ever decides to truly bring Rayman back for a new game, it is going to be really, really hard for it to top Legends. In addition to character and environmental details more beautiful than its predecessor, Legends came with a ton of creative ideas for levels. From a world of giant luchadors destroying the place to a castle collapsing to the beat of Black Betty, this was a game that was all about having fun. And as a bonus, we got a significant chunk of Origins remade with Legends visuals and a plethora of costumes for Rayman and friends to wear. It was an incredible, imaginative, brilliant package that still has fans playing and replaying today. But which Rayman game do you think is your favorite? Let us know down in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to Mojo Plays for more great videos every day.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, there's more where that came from.